So if I look a mess and I sound a mess, it's because my body is finna collapse on me. And I'm trying to get this done, get some filming done before I completely just shut down. It's about that time for me to kind of hit being under the weather. And so here we are. And it's coming with full force madness because my chest is feeling like screw you. I can feel it like all in here. It just, and then in here. And so I apologize. If I look sick, if I sound sick, it's because I'm getting to that. Hey y'all, it's Ashley at Bookishrealm. I just wanted to come in here really quick because it's something that I see in this community that I wish people would just stop doing. And it's not everyone. It's not everyone. But I think it's just a lack of understanding the differentiation between certain terms. And so I kind of want to give my thoughts and perspectives on the differences, and not in great detail, but in specifically regarding one group. So as long as I've been a part of BookTube, I have seen people call YA a genre. I have seen people call children's books middle grade. And so I just want to clarify just a couple of things. And I don't even really intend for this video to be that long, but I've never said anything like in a video, like a dedicated video. I think I've said it in passing. And I know that I've stated it, whether it's on Instagram or Twitter. I know I've said it there. But I thought it's high time that I actually make a video about it. YA is not a genre. YA is an age category, and I'm going to explain why I feel like it's detrimental when you coin YA as a genre and not as an age category. And I think publishing, not only us, is guilty of doing it. And I say us because I am a part of this community. Whenever I do stuff like this, y'all know I don't try to isolate myself because it was a learning curve for me too. But there's a difference between a genre and an age category. There are genres that exist in YA, but YA itself is an age category. It is designed, or was designed, to reach a target demographic. When you start to associate YA as being a genre, you're taking away, in essence, who the intended audience is. And so we're kind of going back to the video that I shot a while ago, What is the Problem with YA, where this whole idea of how YA is being marketed, who the intended audience is now, and who the intended audience was originally is kind of shifting and shaking and changing. And so I think that it's important to remember that it's not a genre. When you say it's a genre, I almost feel like you are taking away the importance of the fact that it is designed for youth between the ages of 12 to 18. All right. It is not designed for adults. It's not a genre that adults are kind of finding themselves in because it's, you know, fast paced. It's known for certain romantic elements. It's known for certain structure. That's not, it's written that way because it's supposed to be catered to a certain demographic. Now, is publishing doing a good job maintaining YA as an age category for that age group? Absolutely not. I've already talked about this enough. I think that YA is really struggling to provide content that is for ages 12 to 14. I think a lot of it, according to what I do for a living, which I do this for a living, a lot of when we look at reviews, when I'm reviewing, when I see publishers review, a lot of it is skewed for ages 14 and up because of certain elements that are included. Unfortunately, what ends up happening, as I've said 1,000 times before, I'm going to continue to say it because I think it's an important thing to remember when we talk about publishing and how we as content creators and influencers are pushing certain things, that we are isolating a whole group of youth, and this is for them. And that's kind of disheartening because it puts them in a very precarious situation in terms of what they should or should not be reading, what is for them, what is not for them. Because you have 13-year-olds who feel like they're too old for middle grade, but then with YA, it's almost too much and they're not emotionally ready for that content. That's not to say that, and once again, because I feel like I always have to circle back around to this is not to say that we should be restricting what's in YA, because I feel like teens can handle a lot, but I think that as you get older, your emotional maturity changes, your ability to want, or your want or desire to be exposed to certain things changes. And also for some parents, you know, I will say I don't believe in book banning or challenging, but it is difficult for some parents to find stuff for 12, 13, and 14-year-olds that is what they consider to be age appropriate for that audience, because they know their kids and what their kids are emotionally ready to handle. So please, if we could refrain from using age category and genre interchangeably, because they are not one and the same thing, and it causes some extremely conflicting perceptions of YA and who it's supposed to be for. I think the same thing is applicable to other children's literature. I think that we as a community have a difficult time understanding how things are broken up in terms of what's geared towards what age group. And so what I have seen is that anything that is not YA is considered middle grade. And that's also not true. Every book that is not YA is not middle grade. Middle grade is a very, very broad spectrum. I will give you that. For a lot of publishers, it usually ranges in between the ages of 8 to 12. And so you'll have some stuff that's on the lower end of middle grade, and then you'll have some stuff that's on the upper end of middle grade that would be too much for some 8-year-olds, but would be appropriate for some 12-year-olds, but still all is in that broad range of middle grade. I feel like children's lit is usually when you start delving into that, because some children's lit, I think even some 5-year-olds, depending upon where their reading level is, 5/6 to 8. So there are some books where people are like, oh, this is middle grade, and I'm like, no, in fact it is not. That is a children's book. It is not middle grade whatsoever. Then you have things like leveled or beginner readers, which are those step-by-step books where it's like level 1 reading, level 2, level 3. Those are for kids who are emerging readers or are becoming more independent readers and may not be ready to step into chapter books. So what you'll end up seeing is that every publisher actually has different criteria for how they level these books. So no one publisher has a consistent form of how they level the book. So if Simon & Schuster puts out a level reader or beginner reader, it's not going to be the same as Penguin Random House, because their standards are going to be completely different. That's an issue with publishing. Not really much that we could do on the back end to kind of fix that. Then you have picture books. Picture books also cover a very, very wide range. I always get so baffled when people seem to assume that picture books are only for kids. Picture books can teach adults a lot of things. In fact, I know a lot of high school teachers who actually use picture books in their classroom. They're a good resource. Some picture books are really not, they're only, when I say appropriate, I don't mean like content appropriate, I mean like reading level. They're appropriate for 3rd grade and up. So when you think picture book, don't just think, oh, you know, it's a 3- and 4-year-old picture book. No. There are some picture books that are actually more difficult and are not meant for a 3- or 4-year-old, because they do not have the capacity to sit through a story that long. As a matter of fact, here goes an example, because I have examples sitting in front of me. This is a picture book. I would not read this to my 3-year-old. The reason why I would not read this to my 3-year-old is because of this. Okay, the amount of text that's on a page, it's too much. Sentence structures, words used, too much for a 3-year-old. Okay, she is just now learning how to sit and listen to stories, and even then, she's not always sitting down and looking at what I'm doing. Sometimes she'll just kind of go off and do her own thing. She's still listening, she's still getting that information, but the attention span for a lot of toddlers is not there. So I would not automatically pick this up and give it to a toddler. But some people will see this book and say, oh, it's a picture book, this is for babies. It is not for babies. Okay, so getting out of that assumption, there are picture books that are very much so on the older scale of when we talk about reading levels. And if we need to have a conversation about what does it mean to be on reading level or not on reading level, or what does it mean when we have teen books that are high-low books, because a lot of the YA books that y'all read that that people call the writing is so simplistic, it's because it's not meant for you. A lot of YA books are what we call high-low books. They are high interest, low difficulty. You don't even know that it's high-low because they're not marketed as high-low, and you wouldn't know that unless you're on the back end and you're an educator or a librarian. And so yes, it is simple on purpose because you're not the intended audience. Like, it grinds my gears whenever I see reviews, the writing was so simplistic and it is a YA book. Well, my friend, it's not supposed to be overly complex. We are dealing with a literacy crisis here in the United States, and so you won't believe, especially with the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, it was bad, but you throw in the pandemic and you have these COVID babies who literally do not know how to read. Kids in 3rd and 4th grade who do not know how to read. High schoolers who are just learning the fact that the PH together makes a F sound, like in physics. I say all of this to say, going back, I apologize because I'm getting ahead of myself. So picture books. Then you have, like I said, beginner readers, level readers, and then you have board books. And I don't think I have one down here because my child keeps all of her board books upstairs. So no, I don't have one down here with me. Board books are those baby books that you find that are made out of cardboard, and they're made out of cardboard and they're considered board books, and they're usually appropriate for literally for babies and toddlers who still haven't like gotten the concept of how you open up a book and turn the page like this. So like when my daughter was younger, I would not even give her a picture book like this because of the fact that she would tear it because she's not familiar with how to handle turning a page. As they get more comfortable with turning pages, they can transition out of reading board books and more so into picture books, although we do kind of flip back and forth between the two. But that's where most kids start. They start with board books, eventually transition into picture books, beginner level readers, chapter books, and then you have middle grade, YA, and adult. I don't know how else to kind of explain this, but I really just kind of, and this is an extremely short video, especially coming from me because usually my videos and my discussions are a little bit longer than this, but I just kind of feel like it stresses me out every time I see people like miscategorize books and kind of promote them in the wrong way, because a lot of people turn to influencers now on social media for book recommendations and stuff, and so it can be very misleading and detrimental to how we look at age categories and how we look at reading levels. And I'm not sure if anybody's ever had that conversation here in this community, but it is something that I do day in and day out, looking at age level, even some stuff. When I get some books in after they've been ordered, I can look at something and feel like, okay, I thought that this would be like a chapter book, but structurally I feel like it should actually be a level reader. And so that is the skill set that I have been taught over the past couple of years. And so as someone who kind of is wired to think of things in terms of target audience and like who it's reviewed for, it kind of grinds my gears a little bit when I see certain things happen and I'm like, that just is not, it's not right. And the expectation is not for everyone to know everything, because at the end of the day, most people in this community do not do what I do for a living. I think we read and we promote, you know, for fun, or some of us do it for a living. But the more technical aspects of it, not all of us do on the back end. But I just had to kind of get this off my chest, because I'm like, I just can't watch another video. And I know people who do it, they mean no harm, y'all. This is just, it's not an attack. I promise you, it's not an attack on you. I just can't. I can't like do it and then just not say anything anymore. Like sit down in a video and be like, hey, I know you mean well, but actually it's not a genre. Actually, that is not a middle grade book. Actually, your perception, the picture books, is wholly incorrect. They're not just for little kids. And so, and there's so much more that goes on to the stages of literacy and how kids move through their level of comfort of moving from one book to the next, and all of that has changed dramatically with the pandemic. I said this in my last video about things that I would never do as a booktuber, and I have yet to answer comments, so please forgive me for that, but I wanted to re-highlight because I did look at some comments. The thing that I'm talking about, the podcast that I was talking about in that video, which is definitely related to this, is Sold, S-O-L-D, a story. And it talks about the issues with literacy in this country. And so I just am very particular now about not muddying the waters, especially when we're having a literacy crisis right now, and making sure that we are all aware and understand the differences between age categories, genres, and what's marketed to who and why it's marketed. And what do they look for? How do they deem something, like, you know, when they do ranges? And this is stuff that people can do on their own. Like, people don't just have to look to me because please don't. Please don't just look to me. But if you go to Kirkus, and if Kirkus has reviewed the book, Kirkus doesn't review everything, but for a lot of the popular titles, especially for young adult, if you just type in the title on Kirkus Reviews website, it will tell you a full review, and it will tell you target audience. They confuse me sometimes because I feel like they switch back and forth, and I can't remember whether Kirkus just does grade level or whether they do age, and I feel like they do both. Them and School Library Journal confuse me because I feel like they play back and forth with that. So sometimes you'll see things like 10 through 12, and it doesn't mean ages 10 through 12. They're never going to review a teen title and say that it's appropriate for a 10-year-old. If you see 10 through 12 like that, it's typically 10th through 12th grade. And so, but then sometimes you'll see the age where it's like, oh, 14 and up, which 14 years old and up. But I would highly recommend using them as a resource to kind of get a broader picture of A, what's wrong with YA, B, why it's important to consider an age category and not a genre, and C, so you get a better grasp on the different subsections of children's lit, because technically all of it in library world is considered children's lit, teen titles included, so YA, young adult, it's all considered children's lit. If you go to Publishers Weekly, it's children's titles. Go to New York Times bestsellers list, it's all under children. It's all children's lit because they're all considered children's materials, even though in our mind we kind of break them up, which is why it's just fascinating to me the direction that YA has kind of gone in because of publishing. But yeah, that's it. I literally just I needed to say that. It's a personal thing. It's me. It's not y'all. I just needed to say it because at this point I'm just like, can we just not do this? Because it actually, I feel like it adds to the problem of who YA is supposed to be written for. So there's that. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment box down below if I can talk. My brain is not working because it's like, girl, we finna shut down because you sick, you getting sick. Also, if you would like me to do a video where I'm showing you clear-cut examples of books that fit into certain age categories, let me know and I will do it. I was not prepared for that this evening. Do I have a book that's representative of every age category in this house? Absolutely. I have something to fit every single age category in this house. But me trying to get life before I completely collapse on myself, it just wasn't going to happen tonight. I was not prepared. It's like coming to class and I was not prepared. But if you'd like to see me do a video where I talk more specifically about titles that fit into certain age categories and how things are reviewed, let me know in the comment box down below. As always, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell for notification. As always, if you like this video, if you're interested in my content, be sure to follow me on social media. Ways to support this channel through Patreon, Amazon, or down in the description box below. And I'll be back with another video soon. Peace. And I probably messed up that outro, y'all. My brain is just not. Sick brain is sick brain. Sucks.